So today I'd like to talk to you about how to, properly acquire new gear. Because I myself stumbled into this pit where I had the urge to get new equipment that I didn't really need at the time, but I really wanted it. For example, like the new S5 Mark II. Awesome camera, and I really, really want to buy that camera. But I won't. And it takes quite some willpower for me to not just go out and get it. But over the last 2 years, I've come up with a system for myself on how to decide whether or not I'm going to buy new gear. And today I thought I'd run you through my process of how I go about that, so you maybe avoid one or two expensive mistakes yourself, like I've made some. But to get the whole picture of this, let's back up 2 years, the way I've started out. And I've started out with Canon M50 and Zoom H1N and these cheap Amazon lights that still light me. I've had them from before, but I've just used them in my work. And that's all I had and all I needed basically, because I've put a lavalier into the Zoom H1N and was golden. I've used 99% of the time I've used the M-mount 22mm pancake lens for my Canon M50. I've actually can't remember ever shooting the 15 to 55 kit lens. I've always put the 22mm on with an ND filter. But anyways, I digress. So that was my gear. That was my all gear that I had, that I needed, that I used. And I've edited the videos on an old Asus UX330. It's an Ultrabook from back in 2016, I guess. That's the laptop I've used to edit the videos. I've shot in HD at first, and that was fine. The thing is, that laptop really isn't made for video editing, not at all. So my first upgrade had to be a new laptop, because it took me ages to edit a video. So based on that, I've bought a newer laptop, an Asus Zephyrus Rock G14, because after conducting my due diligence, I came up that this is the most reasonable purchase for the stuff that I need. And from there it went on. I got a gig where I had to interview 2 people. So my Zoom H1N didn't suffice anymore, and I bought the Rode Wireless Go Mark II to have this interview. And that's the way I've kept going. Every time I had to do something my actual gear couldn't, and it was required for a paid job, I've went out and bought or rented it. If I knew it was a one-time thing, I've rented it. And if I knew it was a thing that I might add to my portfolio as a service, I've bought it or rented it long-term. So I went from the Canon M50 to the ZV-1, because at that time, early 2021, late 2019, early 2021, I've decided to go as light as possible. And for social media, YouTube and website videos, the ZV-1 is perfect. If you're on the lookout for a camera that can do it all, get the ZV-1 and a truckload of extra batteries, and you're good. Thing is, jobs got more intense, more serious, more professional, and so I've upgraded from my ZV-1 to the Sony A7 Mark III. Yes, A7 III. And used that for the remainder of 2021 and most of 2022. And that's a perfect camera. If you need a good camera for basic video work, this will do. The thing is, it can't shoot vertical, and that was the downfall of the A7 III for me. Because I had a new job where I had to shoot vertical video. And while I nowadays often shoot horizontal and leave room on the left and the right to use the middle grid as my horizontal video, back then I didn't feel comfortable doing that because the resolution of the A7 IV's 4K isn't the same as that of the A7 Mark IV 4K. And therefore I didn't want to do that. So I've waited for a new camera to come out, and basically the A7 IV checked all the boxes that I needed, so I've upgraded to the A7 IV. And this kept going and going and going with lenses, with SD cards, because most of the time these cheap 25 bucks SanDisk V30 SD cards, micro SD cards with the adapter, work just perfectly fine, and there's nothing wrong with using them. I've got about 12 or so of them, and I've used them all the time. The thing is, as things progress and as you need to shoot in different scenarios, you need faster cards, for example, to shoot higher resolution or higher codec 4K or higher frame rates and so forth. And this mindset of always upgrading when I get a paid job to do it saved me quite a lot of money, because I don't go out when a new gadget or gimmick is announced to just get it, but I always wait until I have a client that needs something where I need this special kind of equipment. For example, I've used these cheap Amazon lights for 10 years now. Whenever I had to do something with video, even before I started the video company, I've used these lights. And then a client required me to use portable lights. So a light where I was able to power it with batteries. And lucky for me, at the time frame around that time frame, the Amaran 60D, D60 or whatever it's called, came out, and this one's powered by battery if you want to. So I bought that, and the payment for that job just paid for this and all the extra gear that I had to acquire, plus my salary. And now I got a more professional video light, which I rarely use because, as I said, these cheap Amazon lights are plenty good for social media content or YouTube content, which most people host their videos on anyway. So it makes no sense to buy more expensive gear when the end product is so strongly compressed that you can't even tell whether it was shot on a phone or Red Komodo or Red Monstro or something really high end. And therefore I always try to buy the gear that's required for the job and not the gear that I want for the job, if that makes sense. And this is basically my New Year tip for you, to avoid the gear acquisition syndrome. Always buy gear that's needed for the job at hand. Never buy gear for a job you might have in the future. And with this mentality, I acquired quite a big video production kit by now, with multiple different microphones like Shotgun or the Rode, or lenses. I got about 6 or 7 different lenses by now, filters and all that stuff always came into my video kit when I needed it for a job in the future that I knew I've already had. So no guesswork, always bought new gear when I knew I needed it for the next job. And I hope that this will help you decide on what to get in the near future. And the shiny object syndrome with the cameras, I don't really need the A7 IV. It's a tool that is, for my work, it makes it easy, but I don't need it. All the things I shoot, I could shoot with the ZV-1. It might not look as professional, but the client and the audience never knows what kind of gear you use in the back end. As long as the audio is good, as long as the lighting is good, you can shoot a professional video with a Canon Rebel T2i, or what this one was, with a bad autofocus and a full HD resolution only. as long as the audio and the video and the lighting is good, you're good, basically. So these additional things only make my life easier. They don't add value to the client, because the client doesn't care if you've shot the video on a Red Komodo or Sony FX6 or Sony A7 IV or Sony A7S III. Client doesn't care. All he cares about is putting that video on the website, putting that video on the YouTube channel, or putting it on his Instagram, or wherever he's gonna put it. But he's gonna put it in 90% of the time somewhere on the internet. And due to compression, no one knows what kind of video gear was used to produce that piece of video. And with that being said, I hope you have a good week, and we see each other in the next video.